Louisiana Legends is made possible by Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Louisiana. This important program series enables us to discover, through the accomplishments of our fellow Louisianians, the unique character of a state so proudly served by Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Louisiana for 60 years.
I'm with United States Senator J. Bennett Johnston, who has announced that at the end of this term he's going to retire after 24 years as a member of this august body, the United States Senate. I think that nothing gives you more of an idea of what a senator does than something that Bennett just told me. You have an appointment today among your many appointments. Would you tell the folks in Louisiana what this appointment is about?
Yes, John Breaux and I are meeting with the Chinese ambassador, Ambassador Lee, to talk crawfish. And we have a plan which we hope will restrict the inflow of these Chinese crawfish into Louisiana. You know, they're devastating the Louisiana crawfish industry. And we've always thought that the fastest way, the most effective way to get that issue settled is not by filing complaints, but by meeting with the ambassador. And I hope today that we'll be able to work it out.
A lot of Louisiana crawfish farmers hope so too, so good luck. Senator, you came here in '72. What was your impression, a young guy out of Louisiana, Shreveport and Baton Rouge, and suddenly you're a senator and you're in Washington and all this concrete and cement and protocol and lobbyists? What did you think?
Well, it was an overwhelming feeling. It was a thrilling feeling, but I felt really that I didn't know very much and had a lot to learn. You know, and that's the way for most senators who come up here. They don't know much. They have effective press people who issue these press releases, and it sounds like they're very smart and they know a lot, but really you don't. You have to scramble to learn. I mean, economics is a very in-depth subject, and it affects everything we do. Defense and all the weapons systems, I mean, is a hugely important part of what we do. Foreign relations, those kinds of things for the ordinary candidate, they don't know much about. Now, all those candidates running for the Senate right now, most of them will not have the kind of background that they will need to acquire to be a very effective United States Senator. I didn't. I don't. Almost nobody does when they first come up here. So you have to learn a lot and you have to work hard at it. But it sure is interesting.
How long does it take for a person to really be able to operate? How long did it take you, for example, before you felt comfortable and knew which buttons to push and who to call and who to go see, that kind of thing?
Well, it's not some epiphany that you wake up one day and there it is. Rather, it is an iterative process. Now, I knew a lot about the legislative process, having spent 8 years in the Louisiana legislature. And some things I could do very well. I could debate some individual issues very well. But in terms of seasoning as a senator, I'd say that senators really don't come into their own until about 10 years.
Wow. That's a startling figure.
Well, when I say come into their own, I mean that they have the confidence to, for example, to make foreign policy, to make economic policy, not just to participate in it, but to conceive it and compete with the White House or foreign countries or whatever. And you see, that's the position that the United States Senate has occupied throughout these decades of the Republic's existence. We have managed to develop senior statesmen with seasoning, you know, with judgment. A lot of people call for term limits. I think it's the dumbest idea, the worst idea for the Republic. One of those calling for those, interestingly, is Bob Dole, who served up here for over 30 years, and who now has the seasoned judgment to allow him to run for President of the United States.
Sir, under the Democrats, you were chairman in the Senate of the Energy and Natural Resources Committee. That's a big job, isn't it?
It is.
What all were you able to impact as chairman of that committee that you feel was positive?
Well, we passed the Energy Policy Act, which was the most comprehensive energy act ever passed in the Congress. It deregulated electricity to a large extent, which is going to save billions of dollars for consumers. It dealt with every subject from energy efficiency, energy conservation, rewrite of the nation's nuclear laws. We dealt with natural gas. We dealt with petroleum, all across the spectrum. I think that that law is going to serve us very, very well. I've been involved in every major piece of energy law, from deregulation of natural gas, deregulation of pipelines, deregulation of the price of oil, all across the board for 24 years now. It's been very fascinating.
And that's impacted on Louisiana, many of those decisions, some because we're certainly one of the eminent states in the production of oil and gas.
Exactly. Yes, I mean, oil and gas have been both the making and the breaking of Louisiana. The making when the price went up, the breaking when the price went down. And now I'm happy to say that things are going very well with oil and gas in Louisiana. And we're booming in South Louisiana. I just passed a piece of legislation earlier in this Congress to give royalty relief or incentive to drill in the deep waters in the Gulf of Mexico. We just had the largest lease sale we've ever had in the history of the Gulf. And they're building these huge rigs. Some of them cost over $1 billion. Things are booming down in South Louisiana and are going to be that way for many years to come.
Sir, the space program, which you've been very active in, has that impacted Louisiana? Is there pluses?
All that.
Are there pluses?
We have hundreds of jobs, and directly and indirectly thousands of jobs connected with the space program. Michoud is those huge buildings you see in the New Orleans East area, and that's where they build those big rocket boosters. And some of the highest tech employees we have there, well paid, who do a great job for the space program. Got a big impact in Louisiana.
Senator, let's talk some politics. The presidents with whom you've served, exclusive of the present one, we're going to get to a little talking about President Clinton and Senator Dole, both of whom you know intimately. Talk to me about the presidents, starting with who was president when you came here. President
Nixon was president. And you remember Watergate was going on at that time, and one of the most difficult decisions I thought I was going to have to make was going to have to be to vote on the guilt or innocence of President Nixon and Watergate. I made up my mind I was not going to decide until all the evidence was in, because, you know, we would sit as jurors in the Senate. We never got to that point because President Nixon, you remember, resigned. But he was a very complicated man, had a tremendous grasp of particularly of foreign policy. I liked President Nixon, really did, even though he was such a flawed individual. Personally, he was rather awkward. Always very friendly with me, but he was just awkward. I mean, he was, as opposed to some people who are great politicians and are so natural as politicians, he was not. He was very awkward with people, and but he had a great mind.
And President Ford succeeded him.
President Ford was a very friendly kind. I liked President Ford as well. He was not an intellectual giant, but he had, not that he was slow, he was just not an intellectual giant. He had, I think, though, good judgment brought about by seasoning in the Congress over many years. Jimmy Carter was a very bright guy and did a lot of things good, but he couldn't learn by his mistakes and never could get along with people in the Congress. You know, it was interesting, after his presidency, he came back to Washington for a dinner somewhere with his closest friends. Not one member of Congress was included in that group. He just didn't somehow relate to members of Congress, and it really hurt his presidency very badly. He accomplished some good things, but made some great mistakes and was just, I think history will judge him a lot better than the American people would have on the day after he lost the election. As you get away from it, he looks better and better, but he was, as I say, he didn't learn by his mistakes.
Then came, was it Reagan or Bush?
Then came President Reagan.
President Reagan. How'd you like him?
Oh, President Reagan was a very likable person. I spent a lot of time with him. He was, on a personal, social level, he was just very engaging. He'd told a joke very well. These Irish jokes, you know. He was wonderful in that respect. In terms of knowing what was going on, he didn't. And I met with him many times on very important issues. And, I mean, he would come into the cabinet room where we'd be meeting, talking about El Salvador and the Contras, or the budget. I was on the budget summit with him. And typically he would come in, bring out some cards. You know, first he'd maybe tell a joke or something. Then he'd bring out his 5x7 cards and read what he had to say, and then say, well, now I've got to go. I've got to go call somebody. I've got to do this. And he would leave. He just didn't know. Now, that is not to say that he didn't have a political compass. He did. And it was clear, and it pointed in a direction. And when he had competent people, for example, when Jim Baker was his chief of staff, he had a very good presidency because he didn't need to know all those details. I mean, I don't want my presidents dealing with every detail.
No.
He was very effective when Baker was there, not effective at all when Reagan was there. And because both of those were running the White House and he wasn't.
And then how about George Bush?
Well, I was closest to George Bush. He and I were really good friends, and we used to go to his summer place in Kennebunkport for 3 or 4 days at a time over the Memorial Day weekend.
Did they wear you out? They were sports fanatics, weren't they?
Yes. We got along very well in that respect. I mean, we'd play tennis, and then we'd go jog, and then we'd get in his speedboat, and he liked to drive this boat. It was very fast.
Was he an effective president?
I think so. I mean, the downfall of his presidency was when he said, read my lips, no new taxes, and then went back on that. He should not have said that in the first place. And then, having said it, well, he had to go back on it because, I mean, the budget deficit was just a terrible, terrible problem. Obviously, in Desert Storm, he was very, very effective, not only in organizing this country, but in organizing the world to do something that, I mean, it was courageous. The Congress, you know, barely passed that. I voted with the president on that, but as I recall, we passed it by only 2 votes in the United States Senate, and it was the right thing to do.
Senator, we're going to bring it right up to date now, cut to the chase, as they say. Tell us about Bill Clinton as president.
Bill Clinton is the brightest of all of those I've served with. He is, first of all, I think he is not, I think he is very sincere. Now, you know, people say, well, he's running and you're a Democrat.
Yes.
And all that. I'm telling you, Bill Clinton is no fake, and he's no hypocrite. Now, his problem is, I think, that there's a lack of discipline. Certainly in the early days in the White House, there's a terrible lack of discipline where things were not under control. Different people were speaking for the president when they shouldn't have been, and he didn't make up his mind early, and he made a lot of mistakes. Bill Clinton learns by his mistakes, unlike Jimmy Carter, for example. Gays in the military was a terrible mistake early on. He learned from that. You don't hear that from him anymore.
Yeah.
I think he started out too far on the left, Bill Clinton, I think, is really a middle-of-the-road politician, always was as governor of Arkansas, and sort of got dragged over to the left when he started, and he has pulled back to where he really was, which is in the middle.
Is he a nice guy socially? Is he
fun?
fun?
He's, let me tell you, he is one of the most charming people you will ever meet. I mean, Newt Gingrich says, when I'm with him, I just can't help but go along with him, and I have to get over and get away and detoxify myself. He is that good.
Now, Senator, a man you must really know, you've served with him all these years, the Republican nominee for president, Senator Dole. What kind of guy are we talking about?
Oh, I like Bob Dole a lot. I think he is a fine American. He is a real legislator. Unfortunately, people in this country tend to regard career politicians as being something bad, and Bob Dole is the epitome of the career politician. He's made it his life. He's been here over 30 years. He's steeped in the ways of the Senate. I think that is good. I really do, and I like Bob Dole, and I think he's motivated by the right things, and I think he's an effective politician. Now, I think he, just as Bill Clinton was pulled off too far to the left as he began his presidency, but has come back to the middle, Bob Dole has been pulled off to the right by elements in his party, just distractions. I mean, from the gun control thing to the cigarettes and all of that, great distractions. Those are not the important things for Americans. And what he will have to do as a candidate is figure out how to get back to the middle.
Would he be a good president, Senator Dole?
We could do a lot worse, no doubt. I think I would not at all be uncomfortable with Bob Dole. I hasten to say I'm supporting Bill Clinton. Look, not just because I'm a Democrat. I'm leaving the political scene.
Yes, sir.
But I'm telling you, Bill Clinton is an effective president. And he has, I think, the possibility of being a really great president because he can lead, he can portray a vision which people can hook into both internationally and nationally.
What kind of guy is Newt Gingrich?
Don't know him as well, but I'm no fan of Newt Gingrich. Not a fan of his at all. I think he's not popular with the American people because they see a certain meanness there, and I think they have it right.
Senator, what happened when the Democrats lost the Congress? Just overnight, those two bodies that had been Democrat for years and years suddenly were Republican. Where did the party, the Democrats as a party, drop the ball, and didn't they see it?
Didn't see it that completely, no. There were a lot of problems with the Democrats of arrogance and all that in the House. But I tell you, fundamentally, the American people have learned, have acquired an opinion which is fundamentally wrong. The American people believe, or certainly at the last election believed, that you could balance the budget painlessly. All you had to do is cut welfare, foreign aid, and waste. Welfare is less than 1% of the budget. People, you tell them that and say, oh no, that can't be so.
That is shocking.
AFDC is, less, about, well, actually it's 1.5% of the budget. Foreign aid is less than 1% of the budget. But the two together are really very small parts of the budget. And waste is not nearly as rampant as people think. I mean, there is no constituency for waste. And everybody would cut waste if they could recognize it. Now, when you spend over $1 trillion in a federal budget, they're going to be, I don't care how good you are and who you are, whether you're Republican or Democrat, they're going to be some outstanding examples of waste, and they chronicle those on the nightly news so as to give people the impression that that's where all your money's going. So the Republicans were saying, put us in, we'll balance your budget, we'll do away with this waste, and everything will be fine. Well, what did the Republicans do? They got in and they didn't cut any waste. They didn't do anything about balancing the budget. They opposed Bill Clinton's plan, which really did reduce the deficit, even though it raised taxes. And then, rather than be able to produce this magical solution, what they really proposed was cutting, first they were going to cut taxes, then they were going to cut Medicare and Medicaid, medical programs. People said, oh no, that's not what we had in mind. So what I would like to see next time is that Democrats and Republicans get together and say, let's join together and really deal with this thing intelligently and don't fool the American people anymore. And it's going to have to involve some restructuring of programs like Medicare and Social Security. Either that or the American public has got to figure, well, we're willing to pay for these programs, because you're not going to be able to get it out of foreign aid. It's not there. And by the way, we ought to be, in some specific areas, we ought to be spending more in foreign aid. I can say that now that I'm not running, but I mean, a few little dollars here or there in some of these foreign countries can avoid wars. Where, you go to war, you spend it by the hundreds of billions. You can avoid a war sometime by small amounts of money.
Senator, this program, this Louisiana Legends, goes into virtually every corner of Louisiana. We're the only network in Louisiana. So this is an opportunity, if you'd like to address yourself to the people of Louisiana, who have honored you as much as we the people are capable of honoring any fellow citizen. So the mic is yours if you have anything you'd like to say.
Well, Gus, I would like to say how deeply grateful I am to the people of Louisiana for giving me this opportunity to serve. I've been up here for 24 years, never really had a close election. The closest was against David Duke, and won by 11 percentage points, over 150,000 votes. So that's been a wonderful endorsement, and honor and pleasure and feeling of satisfaction to represent Louisiana. Louisiana is an enormously wonderful state. It's got such possibilities. I mean, in the way that Louisiana is good, nobody is even close to us. Nobody has the joie de vivre, the food, the friendliness, the cultural richness that Louisiana has, and talented, productive people. And if Louisiana needs to begin to believe in itself and believe in those possibilities, I hope that my service here for 24 years has helped create some of those possibilities, some of the high-tech things. But if we in Louisiana will believe in ourselves, there's nothing we can't achieve. And I think people are beginning to get the vision.
Senator, you've just summed it up just about as well as I've ever heard it summed up. That's what this little program attempts to accomplish, getting people to believe in our state. As I've done these interviews over the last 15 to 16 years, our talent on an international scale, like people like Dr. Mike DeBakey, is just mind-boggling. We won, I don't know if most people know this, Louisianians 2 years ago won the the Pulitzer Prizes in playwriting, novel writing, and poetry, all Louisianians. So we're a heck of a people.
LSU won the baseball championship.
And LSU won the championship. Senator, best of luck in the future, and thank you, sir.
Thank you, Gus.
Good.
I am today announcing that I will terminate my Senate service at the end of this term. I will not seek re-election in 1996.
His service will be a shining monument to that type of attitude about what public service is all about.
The
be a really good senator, a person needs to have the traits of a school teacher. You need to be able to first understand something and then to explain it to others. And Bennett was very good at that. I would say he was one of the greatest senators of all time.
Louisiana Legends is made possible by Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Louisiana. This important program series enables us to discover, through the accomplishments of our fellow Louisianians, the unique character of a state so proudly served by Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Louisiana for 60 years.
For a copy of this program, call 1-800-973-7246 or send $19.95 to Louisiana Legends, care of Louisiana Public Broadcasting, 7860 Anselmo Lane, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, 70810. Please allow 4 to 6 weeks for delivery.